Still not go there. Okay, go. Good evening. I'm going to call our September 25th, 2024 Board of Ed meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Do we have any public comment in the room? See none. Any online? I see no public comment there either. We can move right into our technology update presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We have Greg Pont here, IT Director, and he's put some slides together and wrote out a narrative, which I said I would read that goes along with the slides. So I'll do that, and then you can certainly ask any questions at the end, and Greg is here to field the questions. Okay, so managing technology in North Stonington has always been a bit of a two-sided coin. In my experience, with success only possible by maintaining a balancing act on the narrow edge between both sides. No matter how many new features or shiny new tools were delivered out of the technology department, the request that shortly followed their arrival was always more. And in regards to the other side of that coin, I'll just say that I understand those voices that have to balance on the edge of a coin too. In this presentation, I will use the word we in a broad sense to encompass all of the support staff that provide services here. Many of the challenges I faced during my time here were also faced by the facilities director position and others, even if only in an abstract sense. While we want to give the staff and students every educational resource possible to excel in their roles, we ourselves have an ever more finite amount of resources with which to do so. We also don't want to impede their progress in any way, but need to ensure measures are in place that put students' well-being and safety above all else, all while maintaining safe state and federal compliance. A primary goal of my position was once stated to me as the perception of helpfulness. But when appeasing one side is to possibly draw the ear of the other, how can success ever be truly possible? I ask this question not just for myself, but for many of the support staffers here who also perform a daily balancing act. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so that slide there that you see goes along with the comments I just read. Let's go to the next slide. This is slide 3. Times have changed. While North Stonington has always prided itself on maintaining its quaint country charm, that has never been the aim of the tech department. My initial charter when I came on staff was to plan for and set up Wi-Fi in the schools. And I couldn't be more proud of just how much further we've taken it since then. While not every advancement of technology in a district has been as palpable as interactive displays, staff laptops, or one-to-one Chromebooks, nearly all became indispensable as soon as they were introduced. This is just a reality of technology in general, whether in the classroom or in our private lives. There are a great deal of missing items on this slide, and it certainly does not include items where tech plays an ancillary, vital role, like security door systems, HVAC sensors, etc. The growth of responsibilities and overall demand for the tech department has been substantial, while resources have been increasingly hard to come by. For the sake of future technology planning, I offer that this is a trend that cannot be sustained indefinitely. Next slide, please. Slide 4, user provisioning and deprovisioning. Adding a new user account has grown progressively more cumbersome over the years, and now multiple operating environments need to be maintained, multiple email and logins. Services such as PaperCut for print management, PowerSchool, Naviance, and the time clocks all require further individual setup or configuration. Badged entry involves using two completely different security software systems, one from Honeywell and the other from Paxton. A single ID card or badge can be used for both systems, but both still need to be configured and maintained separately. Asset tracking is handled by a software called GigaTrack, but that requires any individual who receives equipment to be assigned an ID, which is another step in the new user process. While the system has been great for keeping track of equipment deployments, ongoing accuracy has become an issue since equipment is inconsistently checked back into the technology department before being given to other individuals. Students leaving the district, employees resigning, etc. Deprovisioning is a long-running district-wide problem for the tech department in general, as staff and student departures are often not known to the tech department unless it was a disagreeable or hostile exit. While this is certainly problematic for tech, the larger concern is one of safety and security for everyone here. A forgotten access badge is the same as an unauthorized person having a key to the buildings. Perhaps less of an immediate danger, but still concerning, are user accounts left live for individuals that no longer have a justifiable need for them. While it may be a minor risk, it is also an unneeded risk for an unenrolled student to keep access to North Stonington Public Schools services such as email. Going forward, securing access to student data records, internal district services can be low-hanging fruit to address for risk management. Next slide, slide 5, cloud services. Moving services such as moving services to the cloud results in less requirements for on-premise hardware such as file servers, mail servers, and the like. The amount of file storage we use has increased exponentially in the past few years, and our hardware struggles to keep up. Services such as OneDrive and Google Drive provide more storage than we could ever realistically budget for in district. Additionally, a robust mail server for us would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 figures, and there would be little or no noticeable difference compared to free and low-cost offerings from Google and Microsoft. Incidentally, we are currently leveraging both. As software products are updated and new versions roll out, it will be much easier for the district to stay up to date using online services over manually installed programs that require a skilled person to maintain. A glaring example of this is the district's Adobe programs, which are woefully in need of modernizing. This will most definitely equate to an ongoing cost in the software line, but any teacher working with tech ed in North Stonington will tell you updating to the current Adobe suite is long overdue. Advancing toward the cloud isn't necessarily an all or nothing venture, and larger services such as Microsoft 365 can be run in a hybrid format, mixing the cloud with what's already in place. This is exactly what our current configuration is, and the cost is already covered by our Microsoft volume license that has been a perennial part of our software budget for over a decade. Slide 6, which is network and connectivity. I consider this to be an area of strength to the district's tech program. When the server room was moved downstairs in the central office building, we also ran new fiber from the pole and upgraded our connection from 1 to 10 gigabytes. Our internal network has been carefully planned for years, and all inter-building connections also utilize 10 gigabyte fiber, providing standardization district-wide. This setup, if maintained, should provide the district with many years of dependable service and performance. If and when the time comes, it should also provide a solid foundation that can be realistically migrated to 40 gigabyte fiber or better. One area of the network to keep an eye on is our Wi-Fi. What we have now is solid, and anyone can look up and see the same brand and type of gear, possibly a higher model, at the Sun Casino, Tweed Airport, and a ton of other high-traffic places. It's excellent gear, but it was originally put in place with more modest limits in mind. And before there were 700 Chromebooks in the classrooms, that's the end of the sentence. That's put in place before there were 700 Chromebooks in the classrooms. Now there are 1,000 devices that connect to our wireless every day, and connectivity, they pull 1 terabyte. That's 1,000,000 megabytes of data, mostly within a 8 to 12-hour period. That's every school day. Our Wi-Fi is very good, but in going forward, I would suggest a 3 to 5 year plan for upgrading it. On connectivity and bandwidth, I'll make a perhaps controversial claim that outside of electricity, there is absolutely no service in a school system whose absence would be noticed faster than network connectivity. Not water, not HVAC, not plumbing, not food. There have been numerous discussions in the technology field regarding whether or not connectivity should be classified as a utility like electricity. Any person living in modern society and who has had their home internet drop for any length of time can attest to just how ubiquitous it has become in all of our lives. Slide 7. Thank you for the opportunity to give back. Thank you for the opportunity to give back to a place that has always been special to me and for many years and career satisfaction. Thank you. So that is the end of that presentation. It will take some questions if you have any, and Greg and I are both here to field those.
Good question. Thank you, Greg, for putting that together. I just think the timing right now, in light of the resignation, I would like that we revisit the IT program in its entirety at another time, maybe not today, since we're going to have to be discussing hiring of a new IT director, putting that process in place. I don't know if it's something we can do at the workshop. Steph, I don't know if you want to dig into discussing it now, but, you know, clearly a full assessment from your take on it, Troy, would be helpful to the board to know where we are and where we move forward.
Does anyone else have questions or comments for Greg? Okay. I do think that Troy is prepared to comment a little bit during his report, and then, yeah, we're definitely going to address this at a later time once there is an established plan in place that Troy's ready to talk about. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate the presentation. Okay, moving on to some professional development experience. Mr. Shagru, thank you. I think if you just press the button, or it might be better for you to take that one and turn on, they seem to be more reliable. You can move it to the podium if you'd like, or you could sit with it, whatever works.
Very well. Good evening, everybody. Board, thank you for having me. This summer I was given the opportunity to pursue some professional development. I think it's more than just professional development. My name's Mike Shagru. I've been here, part of Wheeler, for 11 years now. Started here in this building, moved across the street, and the story continues. Summer 2024 was more of a personal journey to kind of a professional journey as well. My wife and I are both teachers. She's in Montville. I'm here, obviously. We shared common conversations about our students, their struggles to engage in curriculum, and the daily rigors of being a student at large. We questioned the tools, the social emotional tools that they utilize to navigate just being part of school, not accessing the day-to-day works that we kind of unpackage in our classrooms, but rather just to be a student. I think it's different than it for any one of us that are here. So we said, how do we explore this notion of social emotional tools, and how do we unpackage mindfulness as a component of the classroom? It was kind of a lofty idea, but it led us to effectively the other side of the world. So what our goal was to do is to now how we can best support students. Yes, in curriculum, in the content, in the modern standards that we have, but how do we help them cope with emotional stressors and let them kind of flourish here in our community here. So we took off on a 14,000-mile journey. It brought us to Denpasar in the south end of Bali. If you don't know where Bali is, Indonesia. If you don't know where Indonesia is, just think just above Australia. So how did how did this come to fruition? And who is Fund for Teachers? Fund for Teachers is a nonprofit group, and their sole intention is to support teachers in their support of their students. And they know that the best way to support the students at large is by financing and seeing that teachers get the best possible professional development that they seek. So they invest in teachers at large, and they validate what it is that we're looking for. There was no professional development that I could find that could help me guide the students of this community, the children of this community. So we kind of crafted and developed our own. And since 2001, they have supported teachers across $35 million in grants. And they trust and support us to design our own curriculum. We run it through them. They give us the green light or the red light. This turned into a $5,000 grant that was funded through Fund for Teachers, not through North Stonington. This was something separate outside the kind of budget line item. So my wife and I took off, left in mid-July and got back somewhere in August. And we visited a handful. I can't even begin to broach what it is that I did in 2 weeks, so I'll do my best. In one instance, we visited the Green School. It's a revolutionary new idea of what education looks like, how we nurture students in the classroom, out of the classroom, and servicing the whole child at large, providing them agency in their own lives, learning so that they can strive for whatever their goals might be. On the right, it's just, again, this is some imagery for what the Green School looks like, totally non-traditional, from their counseling department through to their science departments. It was a different way to access your education. Fourth grade classroom, everything's built out of bamboo, open air concept. I'm not saying that we're going to design that here at Wheeler, but if you wanted to, I'm in support of it. Additionally, these are just key points. Please keep in mind. Community connection. This is something that I'm here at Wheeler. This is an amazing place to be a teacher. I think the community at large here is something to cherish and hold tight to. When you engage, and we were kind of immersed into this cultural component, there's a pervasive sense of friendliness, hospitality. People brought us into their homes. We were not part of a tourist trip. This was not a scheduled adventure. This was 8 teachers who were brought into the back corners of what I would call their community, the nooks and crannies. They invited us to learn their trades, their practices, cook in their kitchens, and share stories. There was an incredibly strong emphasis on community and harmony that was throughout. The Balinese people, whether it was working with traditional mask makers, we visited the Royal Palace, spent time in the Amr Museum, and traveled with different herbalists in 2 different sections of Bali in the north end, as well as central Ubud. It was amazing how quick we were embraced, and how their stories were shared throughout. Again, any one of these line items could be a half-hour conversation at best. We don't have that time this evening. So what now? I'm back here, 14,000 miles back. Here at Wheeler, there's 3 primary things that could be large takeaways, a longer conversation. Deep-rooted sense of culture and community. That's something we have here. You should not take it for granted in any way. What we do amongst our staff and students in the high school, middle school, elementary school, that is something that should be bolstered, embraced. 2, gratitude. The Balinese people, they weave gratitude, thanks into all that they do, and their connection to nature at large. These kind of 3 components would define takeaways from the overarching trip itself. my wife and I discussed that when you have these qualities, when you have these and you respect and own them, this begins to define what we call mindfulness. I think that can define mindfulness in this place, this zip code 06359. It's not really a strategy, it's a way of existing. We see it in the hallways and the people that we have. So I think moving forward, there are components that we're going to integrate as we move forward. This isn't something that happens in a day. I am one person, but I tend to influence. I will do my best to influence how we guide both our advisory classrooms and the times in between. So if you have questions at any point in the future that come about BOE, its people, social emotional intelligences, you can email me at said address or find me in the hallway if we have time. So I'll take my comment off the record.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Shagru?
It's fine.
Seems like an amazing experience. Thank you for sharing with us. Ms. Autron?
It's not that big deal. I mean, I can. Where? 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 Where do they plug it? He can't.
We don't have another.
It doesn't matter.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'll just say next slide. I'm one of the teachers across the street, one of the Spanish teachers. And yeah, this is my 25th year here. And I had the chance to go to Spain this summer between June 22nd and June 29th in a great cultural experience. Next. And yeah. Okay, I went with ACES. I went to Barcelona, which is the bottom picture, and to Madrid, which is the top picture. And if you want more specific information on ACES, you can access the red thing. It's a link that connects you to all the websites. I'm just gonna give a short explanation. Next, please. So ACES is ACES International is a public education service agency that partners with ESAs and school districts to provide students and educators with global competency. And that's a picture of us on the first day in Barcelona. Okay. So who do they serve? They serve all kinds of people who are interested in education. It could be teachers, it could be international industry, it could be, for example, in that group, you don't only have Spanish teachers. Actually, I was the only Spanish teacher and the only person who spoke Spanish there. You have a superintendent in that group. You have 2 principals. You have guidance counselors, teachers of all levels, music, in elementary school, high school. Oh, no. Sorry. My timer was supposed to mark 5 minutes, but it's went shorter. Anyway, so anyone can go in these trips and try to learn something or find something for that they can bring back to the schools. Next, please. They have connections with all these countries, collaborations with all these countries. For example, next summer, they are going to Japan, which is one of the papers I left. And when you go, you have all kinds of course, the touristic and the cultural experience, but they also want you to learn more and more about the education in that country. In this one, for example, they're gonna, in one of the visits of one school, they're gonna learn how to draw mangas. And that is, for example, one of our art teachers would be interested in taking this trip and then bring it back and teach that at Wheeler. Or some years ago, they went to Korea in a technology field trip or study trip. And so you can make connections in a school where they have similar technology or better technology, and you can organize things with when you come back and with them. Next, please. So they have three kinds of services. The one is the international tours. I went in an educator field study. That's what I did. In these, you have a total cultural immersion and you visit monuments like this one. You visit museums, you talk to people. We visit the Real Madrid Stadium. It is culturally is fantastic for teachers. This next slide. The same thing they want you to do is communication. They want you to connect to people. So normally when you do these trips, they take you to schools that are running with kids. Unfortunately, in Spain, school is out earlier than us. So when we went there were no one in school. So we visited, when we were in Madrid, the headquarters of all the Catholic schools in Spain. And we talked to those people and they told us all the programs, all the services they do, all the things they do. So from this connection, I am going to exchange projects with, I already do it with some academies, but now I'm gonna connect with schools in Spain. Presently we do like my Spanish students make a cooking show and they film it in Spanish, and then the Spanish kids make a cooking show in Spanish and they film it and we exchange videos, and they think it's hilarious, but they are using the language in a real situation and real people are gonna listen to them. So that is the one simple example of all the things you can do once you connect. You can do Zoom connections and have the kids talk. And so these trips allow you to make these connections. Next one, please. Another thing they do, and I am very interested in, is enrollment of international students in US schools. And I would love to start working with them to bring kids here, not only because of the rich experience that it is for the people who come, for the kids who host them. Also because they would pay tuition and that money could be used for other teachers to go into these fields of study, because unlike Mike, who worked hard to get a grant, I didn't. The school paid for my trip. Thank you so much.
However, Paloma was already planning to go to Spain, so her transportation she covered.
Yeah,
So
I was
it was a
already
bargain
in
deal.
Spain when this trip happened, so I just had to do a little flight to Barcelona and then from Madrid back home. But and another thing we did, we visited the University of San Luis, which is an American university, but it just dawned on me, really, any of our kids can go there, can have a full experience getting an American degree, because that is an American university. It's you can do the whole your 4 years there, you can do 2 years there and then go to St. Louis, and it's also a great opportunity for kids. Sometimes you want to go to a foreign country, but if you have an American degree, it doesn't work in Europe. If you have a European degree, it doesn't work here. I mean, I was grandfather here because of the lack of Spanish teachers, but degrees do not travel well. So this is a great way of studying abroad, but you get an American degree. So it was a great thing. So what I got out was those two things. I would like to start the enrollment, exchange students, and all the connections I did. And thank you so much for allowing me to do this. It was also great fun. And I think there are no more slides. No.
I'd just like to add,
Any questions?
if I could, I would like to thank you very much, Paloma and Mike, for coming and talking about your travel experiences. And it's really great to hear your excitement about bringing it back and having an impact on North Stonington. And I think that's the real value of significant professional development experiences. And great for Mike for seeking out, it really cost the district not one penny for the experience he had. And if we can get something like this going with kids coming here from other countries, or our kids going, or some type of exchange or teacher exchange even, I think it's just great. So I appreciate the two of you taking initiative to seek out opportunities and doing that. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Okay, so I think we will move on to our reports. Troy emailed his report, I think earlier in the week. Are there further remarks you want to make about it before we take any questions?
Yeah. My report was part of the packet that was sent on Friday. So maybe you've looked at it. I think that there is one thing I would like to make comments on because it came up with the IT department. And I had mentioned in my report that Greg Pont he has resigned from his position. And thank you, Greg, for your presentation tonight. Have a good night, Greg. Thank you very much. So as you know, we've used Learn in the past for other support to support our business functions. Actually, Kathy Trammell and I had a conversation with them this summer to talk about them supporting IT. So we actually implemented that plan today. And we had two people from Learn come and spend the entire day with our IT department so they can learn about what we're doing. So that I feel fully confident that we're not going to have any glitch in IT but I'm in the assessment stage right now, and I can certainly update the board as I learn more. I need to talk with the people from Learn because I haven't talked to them since they visited today. But they're going to debrief with me. I debriefed with our technology department, both of them. And based on my conversation with them, that leads me to be very optimistic about moving forward, whatever that may look like. So that's where we are.
So just trying to get clarification, we are replacing the IT director, correct? Are you thinking that we would not?
I'm considering all options. I'm assessing the situation and then going to determine the best option to move forward. All options are on the table.
Okay, just because I know that we could, just looking at cost, we certainly, even by replacing that position, could probably bring somebody in much lower. If you look at comparable schools, that position, things like that. I remember when we bumped that position up, it was a significant bump up. And so I feel very strongly about replacing that position. With knowing where, just my personal feeling, you can certainly advise us better once you get into where you're at, but knowing where IT is moving, how incredibly important it is to have technology, having somebody in the buildings day on, day in and day out, I think is really critical. Personally, that's my feeling. And I do think we can get somebody maybe at a lower salary point. But I know our hiring process is to put a committee together and all of that. I think we'd want to move sooner than later if you decide that's the direction you want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions or comments for Troy on his report? Troy, I just want to commend you for your approach to this. I know that it wasn't necessarily anticipated. Troy moved very quickly to bring and Learn. I appreciate that you're building some redundancy into our systems by bringing in Learn so that we're never in a situation where we don't have someone to help us run IT. And I appreciate that we're going to have sort of an independent evaluation of what it is that someone else thinks that we need and ways that we could do that. So thank you for putting all that work in. Excited to hear what everybody comes up with. Okay, so I just have a couple of quick things on my report. I forgot to tell you all at the last meeting, and Alex reminded me. Alex and I did circle back and meet with Troy to do his official evaluation in August. So I wanted to close the loop on that. As you all are aware from my email, Alex Karpinski is resigning effective 10/23. So he's not here tonight. I do expect that we'll see him on Saturday. But 10/23 will be his last meeting. both the town clerk and the RTC is aware. The town clerk actually officially received his resignation today. So as of today, it's official. I do anticipate that we will have a recommended candidate to us by our November meeting. I did print out, and I can pass it out, at least you want to pass it down, just because we haven't actually done this in a bit. Our bylaws on filling vacancies. So the vacancy will be filled until the next election. So it is customary for us to reach out to the party who initially held the seat, and they make a recommendation. We have to vote on their recommendation, but our bylaw says that priority consideration should be given to an endorsed candidate whose party held the seat prior to the vacancy. So that is our bylaw and has been our practice. I'm hopeful that this will go just as smoothly as it has in the past. Additionally, Alex is the vice chair, so we'll have to do that. We'll have to replace Alex in that capacity at the November meeting. And Alex also sits on that long range capital committee with Lisa and on the finance committee. So we're going to have vacancies in a few places that we'll have to address in November. So certainly if people are if people want to sit on that capital committee or that finance committee, please let me know. And then our workshop on 9/28 at 8 a.m. I do have this handout, which is just sort of a loose agenda. I sent the real agenda to Irma today for her to post for us. We're going to start right on time at 8 o'clock. It's a big agenda, but I think if we're all sort of ready to go, we will get through it. And my hope is that the agenda will sort of lead us through our board self-eval, goal setting. Sorry, I didn't know where that ended. Goal setting for us as a board for the next year so that we can have a direction that we're moving in. Goals for Troy
Probably.
for the
Usually are
next
about
year
4 hours.
so that Troy, we're all speaking the same language and Troy knows what goals he's trying to meet in the district. I want to talk a little bit about that larger capital list that we have spent a little bit of time on it. And then there's been a lot of talk lately about productive and efficient meetings. I've gotten a lot of feedback from board members about ways that we could do this. I've sort of rewatched some of our meetings. Troy and I have talked about some strategies. And so I'm hoping that we can all come to a consensus on that as well. That is all I have. Any questions? All right.
I have a couple quick questions. When we're identifying goals, Troy, are you talking with your admins to come forward to us with some of the goals for the district so that we're supporting that, or this is just our goals to you?
These are Troy's goals, not the district goals.
Okay.
So his district goals are in place for, I think, this year and next year. But these are goals for Troy so that when we're meeting with him informally in January and then at the end of the year, we're all sort of on the same page. So
Okay,
Troy knows
thank
what
you.
we're expecting of him. And he knows sort of where to go. And then we know what really we're evaluating.
Okay.
So certainly feel free to bring your own thoughts to the table about what you'd like to see. And then Troy's gonna sort of talk us through some stuff that he identifies for himself.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
I have one more quick question that just, Troy, you're going to be out in October, right? You're,
I'll be missing 7 school days.
okay. And I think in the past you had talked about the principal, Kristen St. Germain.
She's
Kinda-
superintendent designate, yes.
Okay. Do we give a stipend for that?
No,
Should we be giving a stipend for that? We would give a stipend to a teacher who does extra duties.
sure.
Okay. I don't know what it would look like. I would,
No, I think it's great. I think, yeah, I mean, that would be ideal.
I mean, because that's a pretty big
She
responsibility.
has not asked for that, but I think it would be a nice thing to do. I think
Okay.
it's appropriate to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think it is. I don't know what that would look like. I'd kind of leave that up to you, but I just
But
was thinking about the
that's-
other day, I'm like, for the period of time like that, if she's taking on, if
Yeah,
something
and I
big
believe
comes up.
that that's something that, it's certainly nice to have the idea come up. I don't believe it's something that the board needs to vote on or decide. It's something
No, I
that
don't think
could
so
probably
either.
just do as
Yes.
superintendent.
Agreed. All right. Thank you. I
Thanks,
think
Sean.
to be fair,
I think it's great.
okay. Thank you.
And I'll look deep in the budget to see like where that could come from, but
All right.
that's
think-
gonna be hard.
Well, I
But
think
you're
on your
right.
salary
I
line,
agree.
we've had some
I
changes
agree. There
that
should be a
probably,
stipend for it.
yeah. All right.
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks.
Welcome, student ambassadors. It's nice to have you here. So this is your sort of first official meeting sitting in with us. Oh, I guess you did one before. It's just been a little while. So who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, thank you.
So I will be giving the elementary school report from Mr. Salino. So the elementary school year is off and running. It's going very well. At this time, all of the kids are now in school. In the beginning, the kindergarten started with their screenings and then social hours. And then finally on the third day of school is when they actually started. During their social times and screenings, they got to meet their teachers and fellow students and become much more comfortable, which Mr. Salino said was much more effective and that there were fewer tears on the first day. There were 6 kids at a time, and the goal was to just ease them into school, which was pretty effective. It is the second official year of using the interreading program. They've gotten grant funds from Right to Read, and they also have implemented the Hill for Literacy, which uses in-person coaching and support for science and reading. For the math department, they have the Bridges Math program for K through 5, which they have prepped the teachers thoroughly on. It focuses on the students' engagement in math opposed to just a standard program. So more hands-on learning, teamwork, collaboration, which, personally, I believe just improves learning as a whole and really helps people to understand what they're learning. The 6th graders have begun to be involved in middle school sports, which has gone phenomenal. It is very good for improving the high school numbers for when they do reach that age. And then just how that works is either Mr. Hare or Miss Karpinski go across to the elementary school if they have practice, so before their school day ends, or if they have games, they pick them up earlier, so that way they have time to get ready and get on the bus. We have a new band director in the elementary school, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Salino has met with him to discuss the 5th and 6th grade band, and I believe that they are hoping to add 4th grade onto it. They are having an informational parent meeting to get more kids involved so that way they can learn what kind of instruments we offer and more involvement. Course has started with Miss Francis. And then for art, Miss Anderson is holding the art club for grades 4 through 6. The kids are currently working together to create a scarecrow to display in Old Mystic Village for their fall season. I believe there's like a competition for that. Drama club is starting up with Miss Gonzalez, which is available to grades 4 through 6. The elementary school had a successful open house where there was a lot of attendance. The summer reading celebrations were held at the elementary school for grades K through 3. They had a game night. There were, I believe, 3 volunteers from Give Back helping out with that. I was one of them, and it was super fun. The kids had their multiple games, Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, Jenga, Twister, and then they had ice cream at the end. They had some outside time too, so it was pretty fun. And there was a little raffle for some of the kids where they got little gift cards. And then for 4 through 6, they had a celebration day at the library, which was kind of led by Miss Shoki and Miss Schott. The whole school read Invisible, which was a graphic novel. The PTO began the Raise Craze fundraiser, where students do or complete acts of kindness and gain rewards for them. and there's more opportunity for parent volunteers. Mr. Salino met with 10 parent volunteers to help with lunch and recess supervision, which is pretty good for numbers. Yeah, and I believe that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, and then for the high school, so we're off to a great start for the new school year. Miss Devine is in her second half of the internship and Miss Curioso is in her first. We're continuing to work hard to build capacity in the school and look forward to their development as they go through the program over time. The school counselors are holding senior meetings currently to discuss post-high school plans with students. Parents receive emails from counselors to review what was discussed during the meetings, just to keep them involved. All messages are being sent through Bright Arrow, which will be promoting this app so the families in the school are able to receive various correspondence from one place instead of multiple apps or wherever else they would get it from. Last week, students participated in the Start with Hello Week. Start with Hello Week was started, or I guess involved each day according to a different message, I guess you'd say. So Monday was Message Monday, Tuesday was Trusted Adult Tuesday, Wheeler Wednesday, Teamwork Thursday, and Pay It Forward Friday. Students were asked to work together to participate in acts of kindness and collaborative activities, which we got a lot of good feedback on, just overall, like coming together as a school and working together with one another for a good cause. On 9/12, Mr. Dan Holdridge came in to present to the 9th and 10th graders about his experience at the Pentagon on 9/11. And the feedback we got from the students for this was like monumental, I'd say, for the most part. It was a lot of students got like a lot of good information from it. It gave them a better understanding of the seriousness and high emotions going on that day, and an interesting perspective that they probably wouldn't hear from if they didn't have him come talk to them at the school, because it's not something you would run across on a daily basis. And the senior class trip to Block Island was on 9/13. It was a ton of fun for all the students. I was there. It was a great time. We were given a ton of freedom to like explore the island within like a safe realm, like no mopeds and taxis, whatever. So we could, as far as you could walk, you were allowed to go, which was awesome. I think like I'm super familiar with Block Island, but I think for kids that really haven't been, it was like an amazing experience. And you had a lot of guidance and help if we needed it, like from teachers around us. And we had to check in with chaperones throughout the day. We had an in-person check-in, and then we had to text them every hour where we were, location, all that. We had a lot of good feedback from that trip too, and I think we're going to try to plan on doing it again in June, hopefully, if that's possible. And we got really good weather that day, which was helpful. As far as fall sports, Miss Macca has held a media day to provide photos of each team to be used for advertising games on social media. Sixth grade joining cross country soccer. We already talked about that a little bit. Athletic Boosters is seeking out more parent involvement. They're looking for a representative from each team. You can sign up using the link Miss St. Germain sent out in the weekly email, which will also give you more information on how to get involved with that. As far as our pathway students, they have officially started their internships. We have 2 engineering students at David Standard and Sharenzia Excavation, and 3 education pathway students interning at the elementary school. And at the end of September, 2 of our seniors will be in their first trimester at New England Institute of Technology, studying health science, one studying health sciences and one studying mechanics. And as far as seeing them within the school, not much has really changed. Like when we see them, they're in our classes and they know what's going on. They're keeping up on things, and when they're not there, it's seems pretty normal. I mean, we've all acclimated to them being there and not being there because they're up to date when they come see us, so they're still involved. We have 32 Preston and Voluntown students attending Wheeler at this time. All are acclimating very nicely, and the application process is going very well. Wheeler students will be heading to Preston and Voluntown to speak to the 8th grade class about Wheeler as a school of choice soon, and will be hosting an open house for interested students and parents in November. And then we have important upcoming dates. So PSAT and SAT Day is October 16th. As a senior, I think you need to register for that. And Spirit Week is the 21st to 25th this year. The bonfire as of right now is October 23rd. It could be moved if the weather gets bad or if rain date or something's going on with the fire department, but that's tentatively what it is. And then homecoming is October 26th from 7 to 9. And I think that's all we got for the most part. Yeah. I just have a few more comments from the high school side. I just wanted to say with the Hello Week, I honestly feel like Tuesday, which was the trusted adult, is one of the most important ones. I think that Wheeler is really good about having teachers that are well connected with the students. You see often like for example, Mr. Man, he does fantasy football. So this kid's going in and out of his classroom during break time and advisory time, talking about, oh, like, how are you doing with the team and whatever. And I know that I've made so many good connections with the teachers at Wheeler. And honestly, when I had the assignment of trying to figure out who my trusted adult was, I couldn't pick because there's like so many that really, that have touched me and inspired me to, seek out more. And similarly with the 9/11 presentation, I saw that last year, I believe, and it was so motivational and so inspiring. I know, like, I was on like the verge of tears. I was just sitting there and I was thinking, I was like, what can I do in my life that would really, in 20 years still mean something? So I try to put myself out there and try all these different things. And I think that I know talking with, some of my friends even, and I'm sure there were so many more people, they were all just extremely motivated and moved. And I think that it is such a great opportunity that we have to present that and to show people like what happened, because oftentimes you just see like a video about it and you never know like how much it truly affected every single person. And to be able to see just one person's story, it's mind blowing. That's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and he was really good about answering all the questions after too, and like there were no stupid questions asked. Like he didn't make anyone feel less of themselves for asking a question that was.
Thank you both so much. Does anybody have any questions or comments for our ambassadors? So I don't know that we're getting into anything that will be like something that you really want to jump into, but please feel free as we continue through the meeting. If you have something to say, if you have something to add, please join in, okay? All right. So policy and advocacy, we had a brief sort of chat last time at our meeting just about like not only where we're at, but how does it start? Where does it come from? How do we know when it's time to update a policy? Christine, I think you had brought up, like, are we happy with our Cape Policy Service? Is that what we want to do? A few years ago, we had that audit and really stripped out our policies. Do we want to continue with that philosophy of sort of minimizing our policies, or do we want to sort of use sort of the Cape philosophy? I mean, they're broad, it's voluminous. They're very wordy. Is that what we want to do? And so I thought that in conjunction with the idea that we're setting goals for our board this weekend, that maybe we want to talk about what's our philosophy around our policy, and so that we sort of are all moving in the same direction. I sent you an email letting you know that I want to talk about it, and I think in my email I talked about that I'm not really looking for any action tonight, nor do we have to have a 2-hour conversation about it. I just wanted to start the conversation so that we can sort of get to a place where we know where we're going. And I think, Christine, I don't remember if you said it just to me or if you said it during the meeting, but one of the things you mentioned was sort of like a framework for future boards. So not just how we view policy, but like how do we tackle policy and like why and what drives it, that sort of stuff. It would be really helpful for us to not only know that for ourselves, but set it in motion for the future. So I have like a couple of things I want to ask of you guys and see what you think. So the first is, how do we prioritize what policies we discuss? Obviously, Lisa and Chet are working really hard to like bring us the stuff that Cabe's saying need to be brought forward, things that come up, issues that arise, they're bringing that forward. Chet's trying to move us through the bylaws, that sort of stuff. We brought back a finance committee. Do we want to bring back a policy committee? I was sort of watching my CABE board chair listserv, and there's a lot of discussion around how people are taking on policy. Most places have a policy subcommittee. Is that something we want to consider? And I look especially to Chet and Lisa, who are doing this work now. Is that something that you feel like would be helpful? Anybody can jump in.
I guess my question is, you said we have a process around issues that come up. Like, are those issues that come up because they're driven by a board member? Or are those issues that come up because they're driven by the school? In my mind, if there's outside of what CABE tells us in our quarterly that needs to be an update or has to be an update, to me, any other policies that maybe something's going on at the school and the admins and Troy are saying, you know what, we might need to readdress this policy because it's not fitting what we're doing at the school, would be an issue that comes up. But to be brutally honest, sometimes I feel like the board comes with things that they're just like, well, I'd like to review this policy because they personally want to review it. And I'm not always comfortable with that.
Sure.
Our policies are our policies. And unless there's something that's not aligning with what's going on at the school should be coming to us to say, you need to revisit this policy because it's not aligning with what we're doing currently.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's how we should be doing policy work. It should be driven by the school.
And I
And when
think
you
that
read the
that's-
CABE model, it should be coming from the superintendent for reviews.
And I think that for the most part, that's Lisa and Chet are bringing us the CAPE stuff. Troy brought us some stuff right at the beginning of the school year that his administrators identified as needing to be updated. When I think back over the last year or so, I think the one policy that we brought forward as a board on our own was revising the dress code policy. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure that I would change how that came about if I were to have to do it again, but
Well, and,
Yeah.
and, and I guess we have to be careful because according to the way that CABE sets it up and our bylaws set it up, a townsperson, a
Right.
teacher, an administrator, Troy, or any board member can come in and bring up any policy and ask for it to be reviewed. So the way that it currently is, it's not school driven. And I mean, if that's the discussion that wants to be had, then that would be different. At the moment, anybody, like literally any resident of the town, employee of the school, can bring forward a policy and state, I believe that the board should take a look at this policy, and then it would come up for discussion.
so then as a board, we would decide whether or not we wanted to take up.
Right.
Right.
It's a recommendation that we
Right.
look at it. It doesn't mean we have to do that.
Well, and I mean,
And again,
I
you
think
don't
that's
want it to be
generally-
personally agenda driven that way. Like somebody might have some personal issue they're upset with. So then they're going to go, well, I think this policy needs to be revisited. So I think we can't be reactive always.
well, and I don't think we are. I think if somebody brings that up, then what we do is we say, well, we can take a look at the policy and how it fits in with CABE. I feel like right now what happens is we tend to mostly fall back on the CABE policy aspect of things. Look at whenever we have things that come up, I go directly to the CABE core policy manual. That's what I base almost everything that I'm bringing forward on. Is this is the way that CABE worded this. This is why I think they did. This might be something that we would want to do differently because our district is set up like this. But that, I mean, it's almost all the CABE aspect of thing that I fall back on. And if we don't want to do that, I think we open up a massive amount of work for somebody that will not be me. Because I'm not going to write policy from scratch.
I think I like the idea that we are accessible. I mean, I don't think that Troy probably is empowering his whole staff to come to the board and say, I want a policy to be revisited. That might be a nightmare for the superintendent, but I'm sure it would make its way through the administrators to you if that was brought up. And I mean, I know from time to time we have people in the public and they say, look, this is a huge issue for me. And you're right, we shouldn't be reactive and we have to understand, of course, that like we're hearing like an isolated incident and Troy probably has better insight into like the whole story, but I think sometimes it's helpful to shine a light on maybe something that in practical application we could be doing better. And I don't think it has to be adversarial, like because an administrator didn't bring it up, it would be bad for the board to work on it. But I do think it's good for us to think about why, if something comes up other than through administration, what is it that's compelling us to move forward? Like, why as a board do we want to move forward and how are we doing that? Sort of what are the questions we're asking ourselves before we move forward? Lisa, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I think CABE's policy service is critical to what we do regarding policy. They have people that's their full-time job, is to go through policy, and they do all the work, and they send it to all the school boards and superintendents, and you know, a lot of it may not apply to our district, but it would another district. So another district board member or administrator or person in the public, but mainly I suppose it would be a board member who's working on policy, may bring it to their board as they see it may apply to their district and to the needs of the students and the goals that have been established by the superintendent and the board collaboratively. I feel if someone in the public or whatever, you know, may bring up a policy that they would like to be revisited, it is a good thing that we discuss it. We're not, you know, we may or may not want to revisit a certain policy, but it's important to discuss, because the public did, whoever did take the time, you know, to come out and show the concerns, and the least they can do, the least we can do is make them feel heard. And so if we're discussing whatever issue is, whatever the policy is, it almost doesn't matter what the decision is if they can see that we're discussing it and they can feel heard. Like we've discussed it when we've made a thoughtful decision as a board, whether to approve something or revisit something or not. But the discussion is out there, and I don't think that's harmful. And we may not agree on whether or not a certain policy should be implemented or amended or whatever. But I think that with 8 people on the board, and we all may not have the same perspective, may not see the things the same way, but I feel very strongly that we make the best decisions as a board, hearing these different ideas. I don't want to work with 7 other like-minded people. I want to hear what others have to say in order to make the best decision. Just because I come up with an idea, or Christine comes up with an idea, or Stephanie, or whoever, or a suggestion of the way to do things, it does not mean that that must be done. But it is something worth considering. And each and every one of us deserve to be heard and our thoughts considered, as they're thoughtful and intelligent.
So I have an email from the Madison board chair, sort of outlining how they're currently doing things, and it sort of resonated with me. So they talked about sort of like the 2 different options that are available to us. Our CABE policy service, like, is funded through our CABE membership, and I think that's probably the most financially sound.
We also pay extra for that on top of the membership.
But it's much less expensive than, say, if we were to look to our attorney.
Right.
And so those are like, seem to be like the 2 options. So, like CABE policy service or your attorney to go through. and look. And this particular man has sort of done both, and he was saying like, look, like strong policy on all issues, up to date, like CABE's the way to go. It's super comprehensive. But if you're looking to really streamline things, CABE's not, they don't take a minimalistic approach.
No.
Like there's, but they're really robust, and they spend a lot of time in the beginning of their policies talking about the rationale for the policy, why we have it, what's going on, that sort of stuff. So I think we could quickly rack up that like huge policy manual that we had before we had our attorney go through and sort of strip them out for us. So I think we want to talk about if we continue our CAPE policy service, which is probably the most fiscally responsible thing to do, and allows us access to really everything. Do we want to take CAPE policies as they come? How do we want to choose what we do? And do we want to narrow down the language a little bit? They also talk about their two-pronged process. They have a policy committee. And so basically they do like a series by series review of all policies in that committee, right? Which is, I think, sort of what you guys do on your own, right? Like going through like in order, sort of, bylaws, a big chunk of the bylaws, go through stuff like that. And then the second prong is that they pull and consider any policies or bylaws that come up. So a law changes, something comes forward and says, hey, we have to, maybe we should think about reconsidering this, that sort of stuff. And that's how they sort of process their policy and continue to update it. That seemed to make some sense for me. But I'm not doing that policy work. You two really are doing the lion's share of it. And so I don't know what you all think about a committee, and I don't know if everybody is still on board with the idea of the CABE policy service. Does that seem to be the direction we want to stay? Do we want to look into other options? Well, I think we have two people. And I don't know if we want to make it an official subcommittee, and if we want to add more people to it. Antoinette tells me we should keep our numbers the same. So if there's 4 on the finance committee, there should be 4 in any other subcommittee. But we can talk about that. And I would like to spend some time with people thinking about what's guiding our decision on policy language, that sort of stuff. Kristen, do you have your hand up?
I do. I just didn't know if I could chime in or not on this.
I would
if
love
that's
you to
okay. Just speaking from our perspective, I think the middle school, high school use is referring to policy a lot, just because of disciplinary things. And what I honestly say, what's really difficult sometimes is that our policies, we have some that will go in and we'll reference and look at, and they're dated as far back to 2001, 2003, 2007. Some are 2017, some are up to date. And then there's that whole piece of which ones, they're posted through CABE, are they on the website? Which one are we looking at? So I personally, and I think looking at it from a management point of view, I love the idea of CABE updating them all. And then as we go through, we know that set of eyes has been on them to modernize them to where we are as a school, where we are as a world today, and that we have people like Shipman and Goodman who are really advising a lot of that work. And I trust that work that they do. I mean, we used to rely a lot on that organization and law firm and Tom Mooney. So I am all for, I think it's hard that we're going through them one at a time and slowly. I could probably put 10 more at every meeting up on the agenda, but I just would feel better knowing they're all the updated version, because sometimes we don't see when we get in there and we're like, oh my gosh, 2003, that's the last time it was updated. And you don't know it. There's 5,000 of them. So there's just no way of knowing it until you're in it.
I wonder if we could, I hear what you're saying, Kristen. I think the thing is a lot of those were reviewed when we did the audit, and then we were told they were fine, but maybe if there's a way to go into it and put a date on it that it was not reapproved, so we don't have to do all that, but just maybe say reviewed,
Yep.
per audit with a date on it, so that even though we haven't gone through and because there were a lot of them that Cabe said, this one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine, but you
Right.
wouldn't know that because the date on it is, like Kristen's saying, 2001 or 2004. So I'm wondering if we go back to that audit and say, okay, which ones were fine, and just put a line on them,
Right.
reviewed by audit 2021.
We could actually put them, I hear some other boards talking about putting them on their consent agenda when all they're doing is just like updating the date, right? So like these were all reviewed on this date. We agree that these stay the same, boom. And so they're doing big chunks of them on their consent agenda.
Well, and some of them are very dated. Like if you open up something, like you'll get into one and you'll say, "How this is? We don't even use this terminology anymore." So I trust that Cabe is at least looking at that and changing that wording to make it fit and more applicable to where we are today. So if there is a way that we could just have Cabe do that, and then we're looking at them, and then as an administrator, if I find something that doesn't fit our school or North Stonington, or Rob does, we can at least come to the board then and say, can we review this even more? Like, I don't think this fits North Stonington. Can we look at it? I think that's a great way of doing it. I worry that some of them are really haven't been looked at in a long time or don't fit us. And maybe if Cabe's willing to give us that work and then we just work within that manual of policies, I think it's just safer and definitely more up to date.
Thank you. Your perspective is really helpful on that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
So do we want to have any other discussion about this tonight? Do you all want to think about sort of some of these ideas about how we tackle this in a way that is sort of meaningful? We're getting stuff done, but we're not putting so much of a burden on just Lisa and Chet to sort of like figure it out. If there's some sort of way that we move forward so that it doesn't feel like you're swimming against the tide.
Well, and I guess that's really what it is. We started going from the beginning, and then it turned into, we really wanted to look at the bylaws. And so then it started at the beginning of the bylaws, and we got a whole bunch of those updated, although they're not technically updated, they're just reconsidered. And then moving through that set of bylaws. But I just the amount of reading alone,
So much.
when you're trying to go through, especially when what you're trying to figure out is terminology or other pieces of things, or how that might not happen. I guess I would hope, Kristen, if you come across the policies that are having these things, please forward that information to us so that we're
Yep.
able to immediately go to those policies and look at them. I mean, that's,
And
that-
do you still have the audit?
I have the like 20 pages that just had,
That would say
yes,
which ones
no.
are okay, so I'm
well,
wondering.
and they just said that they were necessary. It didn't necessarily say the wording is the best it could be.
We just couldn't get rid of them.
It just was, yes, you need to have this policy, or yes, it's good to have this policy. It's none of the audit states the language has been updated. None of it has been updated. It's just been said, yes, this fits the base requirements.
Oh, I'll have to look at it again then, because I thought it said like fine as is, or fine as is, or needs updating, or
Most of them, I mean, it's stuff like provides required responsibility, or amply covered by state statute, or where things are covered. If as written reflects current practice, it should be retained. So there's statements like that, which I don't know if it reflects current practice. So that's the audit pieces of things, is that they provide guidance or provides needed guidance. And so it's statements like that they're telling us, yes, it's good to have this, but it doesn't necessarily say this is what the best wording would be. And when I've looked back at some of the ones here where it says, yes, this is what you should have, the new CABE wording, when we've looked at those, because we did start at the, I think the 3000s we started with and started working our way through. The new CABE language doesn't match the language in our policies, even though the audit states that those policies are okay or needed.
So it's a lot. It's a lot.
And again, what it comes down to though also is if I show up with 2 or 3 policies here, it takes us an hour to get through.
Well,
the
I think
2
we
3
need to be a little
policies.
quicker too. I mean, certain ones, so there's new CABE language on one. It looks like it's a good policy. Just move it forward. I mean, we don't need to rip apart every sentence unless it's really critical to education or something going on. If it's
And
really just
We don't, but
updating.
somebody needs to read through all of those and the CABE language to figure out if that's the case that's going on in that, right? So you can't just say, oh, well, this looks like it shouldn't matter, because it could be actually a big change from what we currently have with the updated language in the CABE core policy manual. And until we have somebody who puts eyes on it and reads through the whole thing, they don't know that.
And they have several examples on many policies of the
Right.
best
Most
language
of
use,
them
A,
have 3
B, C.
options.
so is the idea of having a subcommittee much like the idea of like digging into the financials in a subcommittee to bring sort of like, here's what we learned, here's a little update, we have a conversation about it. Does having a subcommittee to do some of that, to sort of make an assessment about,
Or it will just bog it down even more. That becomes the question, is it going to bog it down or is it going to speed it up? I don't know.
does it make it so that we can move through these meetings in a more efficient way? Like the hope is that we do that with the finance subcommittee. And I think for me, the jury's still out on whether or not that's going to long-term benefit us. But when I was trying to look through the same lens at policy.
Don't we move through pretty efficiently, generally speaking?
I think
With regard to policy, we have the first read.
we had a rough
and then-
last set of them, but I'm not sure.
Well,
that
yeah,
that's
sure we
reflective
did,
of-
but I don't think
yeah.
that's reflective of the norm, but,
Yeah.
like I said, we're not gonna agree on every one, we're just not. So,
I guess I'd just maybe pick a starting point and start not, for a while, we had to pick what was easiest and everything. Now I think I'd go back to, personally, I'd like to see us go back to a starting point of if it's at 3,000, we go 3,000 to 3,010, so that we're not getting into, well, I'd like to review this one, or I'd like to review this one, or
I don't think-
Christine wants to review this one, so that we really have a process, other than the ones that come up that we have to deal with, a regular process that we're going through in order so that some aren't getting picked over
well,
others.
I wanna be clear that there's no personal agenda here.
No, I'm not saying there is. That's why I used myself as an example, so that I'm not picking a policy or somebody else isn't. But I think if we just say, let's stick with, again, a process that, well, this board might not be here in 2 years. If it's a different board and they're like, well, how do they do policy? How do we
Well,
do
we could-
policy?
Yeah, well, we can certainly
Start
do, I think,
a process.
a kind of a guide almost.
Yeah,
But the needs of the students and what's going on, it's kind of fluid.
right.
It can't be black and white. I mean, we are going to come across some
Of
policies.
course,
that
I'm just
could
saying for
apply.
regular to try to clean them up.
Well,
To
I think
have
that's
that
generally what we do.
process. Okay,
Um,
okay.
but I feel like when we do bring any policy, like any policy, it's like, if it's not statute, why do we have more policy? It's like,
Right.
that's the first question. Why do we have more policy? It's like,
Interesting that some districts don't have policies if there's a law in place.
Right.
So I know we had talked initially about only having policies where there's a law. There are some districts that say if there's a law, we don't need a policy. So that's maybe another philosophical question that as a board, we have to decide what are we going to put in that manual?
Ours isn't necessarily because there's a law, though. I just want to clarify this, because what we're presenting are mandated policies, because there's certain laws that within the law, what it states is the school must have a policy.
Sure.
And that's what makes it a mandated policy. So most of the time, we're not putting things in that are covered by state statute. Like, we don't have things that say unless it's required by the state statute that we have it, right? We must have our equal opportunity stuff that's in there, right? We have to have a policy. It has to be in place. That's state law as well. But part of the state law is stating that we have to have that.
No,
So
I'm
we're
just
not,
speaking
we're not,
about
we're not,
what other
I'm
people
just
are
saying, we're not
doing. Yeah.
repeating law.
Yeah, I think we just have to, again, as a board, make a determination about, when Cabe says this is an optional policy to consider. Do we want to consider it? If we want to consider it, how will we know if we want to consider it?
If it aligns with our goals. If
Oh,
it
I like that
aligns with one
idea.
of the three goals, then we should absolutely consider it.
I'm writing that one down.
And if I can jump in again, the 5,000 policies are really important to the functioning of our schools. So I don't know if you can prioritize them, but I will tell you, those are the policies that as administrators, we are constantly looking through. So even if we did a first flush of all the 5,000 and at least looking at when's the last time they were revised, that would just be really super helpful to Rob and I and to Allison as we're looking at policy when we're making decisions about discipline.
Yeah,
Can I ask you, Kristen, though, are you using policy or regulations for most of these things?
Regulations driven by policy. So I don't want to, have something in place and then look up this policy and say, oh, geez, this was done in 2003. It doesn't match. So that's what's helpful to us. So just making sure that we've gone through those 5,000 to some degree to make sure, like when Jen Welborn did this, there was a lot of changes within the school climate stuff and the work that we were doing. And she would come in and meet with us just to make sure our regulations, if this is what the changes were matching in our handbooks and all of those places. So it was just really helpful that those were a priority. I think when this all first started, that's kind of where I think the board that was doing it at the time, that's where they started.
That's good to know as well. So I think we don't want a policy subcommittee. Is that right? Okay. And I think that I'm hearing from Kristen that the 5,000s are maybe the place that we could use some updating or at least eyes on them to see where they're at. So I am happy stopping the conversation here tonight, revisiting this after our workshop on Saturday and see if we can sort of attack policy with some bumpers.
Just a side note, we just eliminated the board's attitude toward advocacy from our bylaws. And so calling it policy and advocacy, we may just want to call it policy.
Happy just to call it policy. I don't know why it appears like that on our agenda. I think it's because that used to be a subcommittee. But happy to just say policy. Okay, well, policy it is from now on. Okay, well, thank you all. And for the next meeting, if everybody wants to think a little bit more about where we want to be at and where, you personally think as a board we should be at in terms of determining stuff, that would be great. And I will sort of continue to keep track of this stuff. So at the end, we can say like, is this really where we're at? Moving on to correspondence. Other than my correspondence with Alex, with his resignation, I have none. Troy, do you have any?
I do not.
Okay, so we are going to go to our consent agenda. And the first would be, well, there's minutes and move the financial report to the Board of Finance, but I do have to pull the minutes off of the consent agenda because I found something that needs to be amended. Under number 8, policy approval, 8C, menstrual products in student bathrooms, there's a discrepancy between the way that the votes are recorded and then the tally of the votes. This says yay 2, nay 6, which would indicate that it did not pass. It should be amended to be yay 8, nay 0.
So sorry to interrupt, right before the meeting, Irma let me know that she went back and looked at that and.
Oh, so are you all looking at corrected ones in
So
your
the
packet?
packet that was handed out to you tonight has a revision in it on page 4, that 8C. So the vote, the tally was actually correct, and it's just the individual votes that were inaccurate. So if you look at that now on the one handed out tonight, that we just gotta ensure that that is accurate, and I believe it is.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I'm confused about what we think happened at that meeting. So 8C, I'm looking at the minutes that you handed out, and that had a discrepancy between how the votes were reported individually and the tally. So here it shows that everyone voted yay, but at the bottom it said only 2 voted yay and 6 voted nay. So you're telling me that it was corrected? I think you're looking at the updated copy for
that's the
tonight,
one they handed
which
out
is
tonight.
different than what you got in your board packet.
Yes.
Okay, so this is, so I am gonna defer to you, Irma, that you went back and you watched this. I thought that we passed a policy that night. And that what we didn't pass was the, addition to the policy. But I will, certainly, and if I review the meeting and see something different, I'll bring it to your attention, but I appreciate you correcting it here. Well, if it was a straw poll, then
No, it
this
it
isn't
was,
good either.
it was a vote, but it failed.
I thought the one
It
that.
went
okay.
down like it's written here.
Okay. I thought the second one failed. Okay.
To
Okay.
both.
Well, yeah, both.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you for correcting it. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I had to pull off of that agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected in our board packet? Is this how it reflects online now? Okay, so as corrected as it appears in our new packets tonight.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from August 14th as corrected in our board packets.
Do I have a
I'll second
second? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. And then, could I have a motion to move our August financial reports to the Board of Finance?
I make a motion to move our August financial reports to the Board of Finance.
I second.
Any discussion about that? All those in favor? Aye.
Can I just ask-
Opposed?
No.
Abstain?
No,
Jo-
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I have a question when we're all done.
I think we're all done.
I just have a quick financials question on something else, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Troy, can we get, for the next report, where's Kathy at with learning the IDEA and the grants and all that stuff? I know that was something she was a little concerned about not, did she have some training on that? And can we get a report on where we are with those grants and funds and stuff and what we're funding with it?
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
what positions are in there, what we're doing with it?
Yep.
Usually in the past, always got like a report on the bottom of our financials of that stuff, and we haven't
the
really
grant.
seen any of that in a while, so.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay. Yeah,
that'd be
no
great.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the update on the state of the town presentation. After our meeting, I actually spent some time talking to Lisa a little bit more about the state of the town, and we brainstormed a few ideas about not only how the night would look, but also how we might market that idea. So I just wanted to update you. I did speak to Bob Carlson that next day, and then he brought it to his board of selectmen. They all voted they want to be a part of it. So it'll be a state of the town, 10/28, 6 p.m. in the Wheeler Commons. Everybody agrees that there should be super short presentations, 10 minutes or less from the Board of Ed and from the Board of Selectmen. And we should be highlighting things that we are excited about and that we're proud of. It's not really a time for, doom and gloom, but rather a time to really help to connect people to what's happening in town. We are going to send an invitation to Greg Howard and Heather Summers to give us brief updates on things happening in Hartford as they relate to North Stonington. We're asking them to keep it very short as well. We're going to invite other groups from around town that might want to promote what they're doing or increase their membership. So in brainstorming, we're thinking about things like the library, the fire company, PTO, the Ed Foundation, other boards and commissions, people that maybe they need to recruit, or maybe they're just excited and they want to share what they're currently doing. Troy has volunteered to be the tour guide if people in the community want to take tours of the school. We've talked about trying to have that video that Kristen and Allison used for recruiting at our Preston and Volantown presentations, maybe have that playing somewhere. And he has asked the administrators about student groups that might want to participate or projects that we might want to have highlighted that night about what kids in the district are doing. Christine, we took your idea of the tables sort of being around so that people can mill around, get information, talk to people. So not necessarily just be spoken to, but talk to people to create an environment where people are interacting with each other. We are going to have some stuff in the quarterly that Lisa says is going to be out. When is that? Next week, 2 weeks?
It should be next week.
So that'll be people's sort of first introduction to this idea that we're doing something on 10/28. The town website is going to put something up. Troy will have something on the school website. Bob Carlson has sent a welcome note to every family that has moved to town, or every resident that's moved to town in the last 3 years. And he's retained their addresses. And so he's going to send invitations specifically to those households, because those are people that maybe don't know that much about our town and maybe haven't had the opportunity to see what's going on and who's doing what. And then we have to consider some other forms of advertising, maybe using the LED sign, those big signs he puts around town sometimes, social media, that sort of stuff, thinking about a way to provide some light refreshments. But I think that, Lisa, I'll speak for you as well here. And Bob, that the goal of the event really is to have people connect to the town, to each other, to walk away knowing more maybe than they knew about something. So maybe if somebody comes to hear Bob talk because they are interested and they follow what's happening in town, but they don't have a student in the school and they're there to hear something about our school, that's a really great opportunity for us to get an audience in front of people that we might not usually get an audience in front of. So, in any event, those are my updates on that. Does anybody have questions, suggestions about other things that we should be seeking out for that night?
Yeah,
No, but-
sorry, I just have a quick question.
Of course.
Do you want us to like advertise to the school about like any groups who want to, talk about what they do or their membership?
I think that's super great. I think maybe running it by Mrs. St. Germain to see what she thinks. I think Mr. Hopkins just talked to them today, maybe about it. So, but thank you. I think that it would be a wonderful opportunity for you guys to engage your peers.
And I won't be here now on that date, just to let you know.
All
Sorry.
right,
I'm out of
Christine.
town.
I'm putting you as a no.
Okay, sorry.
I'll still pick your brain about a couple of things. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, that moves us down to the capital list. Troy sent us an updated capital list yesterday, and we are under a little bit of pressure to get this approved from us in some form, because it is due to the Board of Selectmen on October 7th. So Troy, do you want to sort of walk us through what you have here?
Yeah, sure. So it's similar to last time. I updated it based on input that you provided. We have the beginning part is broken up by the first 5 fiscal years. And you have the total there. So for fiscal year 26, there are 3 items there. And they are in a priority rank. There you can see that column towards the right. And then there's the total for fiscal year 26 there, just totaling the three items together. So we got more specific with the estimates of pricing, and I filled out the form that's required for the two vehicles. This is the form that the town puts out, says you have to fill this out, and then you have to have attached estimate or a quote or a printout from a web page. So for the second item, the meal transport vehicle, I have a quote here. It's a Ford Transit cargo van, which we heard from Randy that a cargo van would work. I confirmed with him that this kind of thing would work. It's brand new and it's just under $50,000. I have one here, the student activity passenger van, which is a Chevrolet, and it's local. And it looks like it could meet our needs. It's a 15 passenger or 15 seating rather, that includes the driver. So it would allow some versatility in taking smaller field trips or co-op sports, like transporting the football team to Griswold. It could also be used for work-study programs through any of our classes, including the alternative ed program that is starting to go places and do some things. So we have those, and then we really do need a storage container, another storage container, as you heard, I think from Randy last time, Randy Romerl, our Director of Facilities, that we do have a container down at the buses that is accessible by rodents now. So they get into the wiring of the lawnmowers that we have to put there, and it's really causing a problem, and we want to keep our equipment running. We did purchase that storage container that is out adjacent to the gymnasium last year, and it was just under $10,000. So I don't yet have a revised quote on that, but I have the quote from last year here, which shows it was just under $10,000. It's also a possibility, though, of leasing those items. And the quote we got last year was, I don't know the exact amount, but it was, a few $100s a month. So I don't yet know. I think it's probably better to buy it if we're going to use it long term. But we do have storage needs, and I don't know if those storage needs are going to go away. So just to remind everybody, what we're doing is we are rotating the snow removal equipment with the lawn equipment to the new storage unit near the gym as the seasons change. And that does require a bit of work to move them, but in the past, before we had the one storage unit at near the school, we were leaving the snow blowers outside chained to the columns in the back of Wheeler, which is not ideal for maintaining the equipment. So we needed that one storage unit, but now we need another one to replace the one that rodents now have access to because it's old.
I would just throw it out there, Troy, that I would have an appetite for looking at that $10,000 purchase out of non-lapsing and have the two vehicles be the thing that we're looking at from the town. I would happily, I know it's not on our agenda tonight, so I can't make a motion, I don't believe, to take it out of non-lapsing, but I think that would be something we could do, get it done faster so that you have that going into winter before we just have a whole bunch of mice.
I agree 100%. I think that smaller ticket item like that is something that would fit there very well.
And I think it also shows like we are looking at this list and saying, what are other resources?
You could leave it on the list and say move to non-lapsing.
Yeah, so why don't we just not approve, or we could do that, or we could, yeah, we could do that. It's just not it's not a request that we're making. They're looking to us for a request. I certainly can talk
Oh.
about it.
Sure.
with them. But maybe if we can't vote on it tonight for non-lapsing, I think we just don't.
I
approve it,
guess,
period.
can we? I don't know. I don't know if we can. Technically, I think we would have had to add the agenda item at the beginning
Yes.
as a non-lapsing aspect.
So
We can't
let's-
just rant, but if we are talking about a capital list and what we're trying to do is adjust it, it is discussion on capital list to remove
I
it and
think
add it
so.
to non-lapsing.
Can we
Right.
add an agenda item at any time?
We,
It's a regular meeting.
we
Yeah.
can.
We can add it at any time.
I think so.
Yeah.
I make a motion to add agenda item 9A under new business for non-lapsing discussion of storage container.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion?
You're worried about code, John? We would look into all of that before. We would just approve the spending on it for now. We got it
Yeah,
approved
this-
before.
And this wouldn't be about putting something new. It would be replacing the one that's already in the depot.
No,
Yes, we have two. We had to get approval for this one, and clearly we had to get approval for the one at the bus depot.
we got a variance. We got a variance on the
Yep.
last one, so.
So we wouldn't be looking to add a new one. And again, tonight isn't about buying it. It's just about approving this capital list.
Can I ask a couple other questions on the line items on the capital list we're on
Sure,
now?
did we finish that vote?
Yes.
Thanks, Irma. Okay, so we'll put that later. Now we're talking about school meal transport vehicle and student activities van. For the purposes of tonight's conversation, can we keep it to this year or next fiscal year? And then we can revisit the other years
Yes.
later. Perfect.
So I would like to see the impact of what the savings is going to be to do the transportation van. I think that would be really helpful to know what we actually think we'll save in that transportation. And I also think that waiting 5 years to fix a sinking building doesn't make sense to me. I think we need to fix that ASAP. And I think we should be reaching out to Downs to see where they are with all of that as well.
On a previous list, it did state that we spend approximately $10,000 on sports transportation that could be replaced by the van. But I don't know that that includes things like field trips or the possibility.
Right. We want to be real solid on that number, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it probably should be on this paper that we submit, right?
Right.
What's the benefit of the town? Or what's the benefit to the town from purchasing the item?
It's actually on there. I have it on the form that says approximately $10,000 a year.
Oh, it does on the form.
On the form.
Okay. All right.
I took it off the chart and I put it on the
All right.
form.
Thank you. I
And you
appreciate
think that number is still accurate?
I will double check with Kathy. But I believe it is, but I will double check.
Did I make him mad?
And
Oh.
so Troy, in terms of priority, you feel like the transport vehicle is more pressing, the meal transport vehicle, than the activities van?
At this point in time, I feel like it's a higher priority because the kids need to eat every day and we need to move food from the elementary school to Wheeler. And that vehicle is not starting on a regular basis. And it would be nice, I think, for kids to know that their food is being moved in a new vehicle, not an old vehicle.
Is there concern amongst the student population that they're
I
not
was
going to get their
thinking,
lunch?
no, I haven't heard that, but I'm
Okay.
just thinking maybe you have two students here. I don't know how they want your food moved from the elementary school.
Or are
to-
you aware that there's a concern? Are you nervous?
We don't have a sports van yet, so.
I would just say I haven't heard of anybody being concerned about how the food gets there. I mean, honestly, I would say that some people find it pretty funny that food gets delivered in an old ambulance.
Well, it is funny.
So I mean, on that note, I would say I haven't seen any concern. I wouldn't say that I'm concerned about it. But in relation, but in relation to the sports vehicle, I think that if it was also used for clubs, it would be pretty beneficial. I know specifically Give Back has had a lot of problems of not being able to bring as many student volunteers on their projects because we're limited to only like 1 or 2 parents who can drive, because most of them are, a couple days. Not everybody can get away from that. And I think that the opportunities that, specifically Give Back provides are just numerous. And I think that being able to have that van for either sports or clubs or, you know, as long as it's being used for a good purpose, I think that it's very beneficial.
Maybe this is the ambassador that's coming to the Board of Selectmen's meeting to talk about what we need.
It's like we had, yeah, I went on 2 field trips last year where the teacher drove his car to the field trip, which like, it's fine with me. It's just a little odd going, like, you can only have so many people to go on a field trip. And so I think the van would be nice for like those purposes.
Yeah, I know I've had, well, I mean, last year I know my mother volunteered a few times because she has a bigger car, but you know, it's not something she can do all the time or every time. And it's the same for many parents. So, I mean, I think most of the field trips I go on are driven by teachers or parents. And I think that having like a designated van or car would be, you know, it just helps out a little bit.
So am I hear you both say that you think that both the school meal transport vehicle and the student activities passenger van are good, solid purchases that we should be asking for?
Yes, 1,000%.
Okay.
I have a quick question. We
Go
got the meal transport van from the town. It was the old ambulance, right?
We did.
If they're in the process of replacing one,
They are.
is it possible to acquire the one that they're replacing since it's in much better condition and using that for a while instead of purchasing a new one? Yeah, there's.
I didn't know they were
Yes.
replacing one.
They are.
I don't know if maybe,
I think we should use a ladder truck instead. You can just, you know, slide the ladder across, and run them right.
It wouldn't even have to start.
that may- it- that
At
we
some
can-
point, we are
yeah.
gonna have a conversation about having like some form of cooking at the other school in some way, aren't we?
There's
Just
not much, there's no
The
space.
building wasn't designed like that. It was
addition,
designed for this.
do something.
Yeah.
I just-
Yeah.
Ouch.
So Troy, do you think that, because I'm thinking that, right, as soon as this rolls out, people are gonna start saying exactly what we're saying, which is like, well, how about another ambulance? Could you consider a used vehicle? Does it have to be the specific one? Are you wedded to the idea that it's what you found, or are you just saying it needs to be a priority that we replace this and that we sort of manage this problem, and you're open to a variety of
That-
solutions?
That's true. What you just said is true.
Okay.
Yes, I'm open to a variety of solutions. I just put a possibility of replacing it here.
But it's your highest priority if we take off that storage container, because we're gonna do it at a non-lapsing. It's your highest priority right now.
It is right now
Okay.
because it doesn't start reliably.
Okay.
And
Well, that's-
kids need to
That's
eat.
good. Okay. So I think that's a fair, that's fair. Then I think a fair ask that while you have an estimate for this, it doesn't have to be this.
No,
It has to be a reasonable solution.
no.
to the
And
problem.
if the town has a vehicle they're replacing and they're not planning on selling the vehicle they're replacing and it's still in good working order, then certainly that would be a possibility,
Okay, Lisa.
especially if it's free.
If the transport vehicle is not starting now reliably, there may be a point where you have to really think outside the pizza box and getting stuff over there. So can we wait a year for this? Like, is there a way to replace it sooner? I'm not saying new,
if-
but if there's
if it
this
comes- if
ambulance
a
becomes
replacement comes free,
available, or
Soon.
because
But I mean,
I just worry if it could
Randy's
wait
used
a
to-
year.
He's jumping it. Like, they've replaced the battery dies, he's got to jump it. It requires a lot of time to make sure it's running.
So I do think the town was gonna sell that ambulance, but I don't think it was supposed to bring in much revenue. Like, I think expected to bring in like $9,000 or something.
So you can buy
so-
it using your non-lapsing account.
Or we can just ask for it. But we certainly could talk about it. And if it's here, right? Maybe we don't have to wait.
It is funny to have an ambulance deliver the food. Maybe we want to stay with that tradition.
I'm gonna add that to the presentation.
I know that we're only talking about this year, but just you misspelled Kubota. So if you're putting
How's it
this to the
spelled?
town,
What,
it's KU.
thank you.
Thank you, Chap. And then do we have comment on the student activities passenger van?
I'm a huge advocate. Have been for a while now. So like I'm all for it.
I agree. Do it. We need this. I think we need to make this a priority too.
100%.
Okay, so Troy, same question for student activities passenger van. So it's a priority that we get one of these. It doesn't have to specifically be this one. This is the one that you were able to find a quote for, and you think that this 15 passenger van is the one that meets our needs.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
This one, I would say we want something new though. Like the one that's going to travel 100 feet each direction, every day. Like I'm less concerned about new, but this needs to be new. We want it.
Troy, what's the quote that you got? Did you say a 2015?
I'm sorry, you want to know the year of the vehicle?
The one that you got the quote for, that you just told us that $56,417.
Yeah,
How old was that?
It's brand new. It's
Oh, okay.
2024.
Good to know. Okay,
Express
thank you.
passenger.
I heard 2015.
Chevrolet.
When we're talking, are you willing to do other things? I would say yes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a Chevy or a Ford,
yeah.
but it needs to be a new vehicle so that it's under warranty for the beginning, so that we have something that's safe and has all the bells and whistles
Yeah.
of the new
I mean,
vehicles that we
this is just an idea I wanted to get in the ballpark for cost. And here this shows that we're in the ballpark with that amount of money.
For sure. Did that come off of the state bid list?
No,
Okay. Okay, thank you. Do we want to make any changes to this?
Yeah, that floor in room 147. Where is that?
It's not for 5 more years.
It's in fiscal year 30, it's highlighted. Well,
Yeah,
it's gray lighted on my copy. I
I
don't,
don't know if anybody's actually gone in and seen the floor, but there's a pretty good sized crack in there and a gap in the concrete, and the tiles are all popped up. I
Yeah.
don't think that can wait until 2030.
What do you think about moving it to
This
fiscal year 26? Since we took out the 10,000.
I think Troy highlighted it also because this
It's
is one
pink.
of those things that might not be ours.
yeah, all the pink items are items that the town may be taking on.
So
Right,
maybe I should just go
Yeah.
talk to Bob about it and make sure that they're aware.
Yeah, whether it's us or the town,
Of
it's something
this
that should be.
and-
looked at.
It could be moved and highlighted there. I mean,
For
it's highlighted
sure.
here.
It could
Just
be.
moved to highlight it
Okay.
here.
Could be.
Yeah, I don't mean we pay for it.
Right.
And
I
we,
agree. I think it needs to be for next year
Right.
because when you have a building shifting
Wait.
like that, and you don't address it,
We-
it's only going to.
so
make other
really,
things worse.
I mean, really, we need to have like an engineer come in and assess the situation and then give us a real estimate as to what it's going to cost to rectify the situation.
Troy, is there a reason why you and Randy decided to put it at fiscal year 30? I know we're all reacting to it. It sounds like a big deal to me. But is there a reason why it's at fiscal year 2030?
Well, I think it's been there for a while. Don't think it's like getting worse.
Okay,
And I think that's why we felt like it could wait. But I think it would be a good idea to get it fully assessed to see, okay, what's going on with this? And is it an issue that's gonna get worse if we don't fix it right away? Or, what is the situation? So I think we do need to have someone come in and take a look.
so I know that some people are proposing that we move it right now. And
You have to have this to them, right?
right. So, and Troy's saying that maybe we need a full assessment. Do we sort of move it there? And then have this as, certainly we can have this conversation as it comes up, but perhaps we should put it there so that the Board of Selectmen is aware that this is an
Yeah, we can
issue
always move it back.
that
if
we're
need be.
concerned about. So
Right.
they would actually, I think, be the ones that sort of
Gotcha.
push it back if they don't want it. But if we say, like in good conscience, we want you to know that this is happening.
Yeah.
Even though it requires an assessment.
And maybe the town would actually, because if they're gonna take, you know, pay for the building, maybe they would arrange someone to come in and take a
Yeah.
look. I don't know. It doesn't matter either way.
Okay.
Put it on.
So with that discussion, does someone want to make a motion for what our fiscal year 26 capital list might look like?
So I make a motion for the following changes on the proposed capital list, moving the floor repair up to fiscal year 2026 and removing the storage container.
Can we make a motion to do that before we actually vote on the storage container?
We can move it off the list anytime we want.
Hmm.
So that list would also include the school meals transport vehicle and the student activities passenger van?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Everybody comfortable with this capital list?
The only thing would be to Chet's point, if it doesn't get approved to spend it in the non-lapsing account, then what do we do?
We could just move it back. Right?
I feel like we might be okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. So Troy, I think we have a list.
Beautiful.
Okay. It's a fast capitalist. And so I think, are we at 9A? I think we're at 9A, new business. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve up to $12,000 on a new storage container for the school.
I second.
Oh, from the non-lapsing account.
Is there any discussion?
I guess
So
my only discussion would be, Troy, do you think 12,000 is enough of a cushion for considerations?
I think it is, because
Okay.
last year we were able to get one for just under 10, and it's only a year away from that. I think would be okay.
And I think the only thing is you would look into the zoning part of it. Would you say a waiver or a, whatever it was that was.
Yeah, we had to work with the
Very
town to
specific, that's what I
Yeah.
was looking
do the
for.
whatever permitting and all
Prior
that we
to
had to
it,
do.
okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit complicated, so we're gonna have to look at that again and work with the town on that.
So my only discussion here is that I think that this is an excellent way that we're sort of prioritizing getting this list done and using our non-lapsing account. But we talked about sort of at the last or 2 meetings ago about our non-lapsing account really needing like a good solid plan. So I think today is fine. I would not like to make a habit personally myself of adding this kind of thing to the agenda, because I think we should sort of be looking at things holistically and planning, but I'm comfortable with this purchase tonight because we do have to get this done. Any other discussion? All those in favor of purchasing the storage container up to $12,000 out of non-lapsing? Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you, guys. 2025 schedule of meetings. Does anybody want to talk about this schedule?
I guess the only one I kind of looked at was June 11th, like, cause isn't that the week of school, the last week?
We usually
Yeah.
cancel.
Are you going to cancel them now, or do you want to just
So,
keep them on the
I
books?
think, Christine, isn't it our usual practice to keep them on and then cancel? Because if they're on, they're regular. If we cancel and have to add, then they're special.
Buy and change the date. It's right, it's very close to the July 4th holiday.
Do you think, so if we change the date, we go with the middle one, that's Board of Finance. Is it,
Oh, just leave them then and just cancel.
we could
the
just
date.
do like we did this year if we decide that's what we want to do? All right. Anybody want to?
Me? Okay. Make a motion to approve the 2025 schedule of meetings.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Great.
So it looks like,
Jamie and I both signed?
yes.
Thank you. And any public comment in the room? Any public comment online? There's no public comment.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Great. Good meeting.